Hello, everyone. This is Ben Kelly with the Endeavoring Orthodoxy podcast. I am back. I've been out for a while. I was sick during most of November, so I couldn't speak. I lost my voice several times, and then I was finishing up my postgraduate degree in theology during December. And so since then, I've just been working on some things to get back to you. And so here I am. I am back. I'm going to be pushing forward. So this episode really serves as, a kind of update. I want to tell you about some of the things I have planned for the future with this channel. And then also talk about some of the books that I read to finish the year and make some suggestions of what I think you should spend your time reading. So, before I do any of this, if you would please remember to like and subscribe. When you do those things, I am able to really keep going. Your liking this and your subscribing is what makes me a little more popular, gives me some fuel for what I'm doing, and my goal really for the first quarter of 2023, my first and foremost goal is I want to get this channel up to 500 subscribers. So be sure to help me grow. Tell your friends about this channel. Help me get to that 500 subscriber mark so that I can really continue to keep working on making good content. I know that you guys like this stuff. I know that what I've got here is working out. So help me reach that goal in the first quarter, 500 subscribers, and we will get there. So, updates. What's been going on? Well, I said I was very sick and I lost my voice. That was the main reason why I couldn't record and do anything in the month of November. Developed some bad laryngitis. I kept losing my voice, and really, it does actually kind of come back again and again. Even now, I'm not sure what I had. I was pretty sick for about 2 weeks, and then this reoccurring voice loss kept happening. But I am done with school, maybe forever. We'll see. I do have dreams and visions of someday becoming Dr. Ben Kelly, getting a PhD, but really don't know if that is feasible. I officially finished my THM on December 15th. Now, for those of you who don't know what a THM is, it's a postgraduate degree in theology, and you get that degree after receiving your master in divinity. So I received my master in divinity back in May of 2022, and I immediately transitioned over into this THM. The THM is really seen more as an academic degree. It is seen as a prestigious degree that if you go onto a seminary website and you look at the doctorates they have listed for their programs, usually the THM, although it is technically a master degree and it's not a doctorate, it will be listed among the doctorates. And so you have to have a high GPA to even apply. I think at my school it was a 3.6 or higher already in with your master in divinity. And a master in divinity, the minimum requirement is 75 graduate hours. And so we're not talking about people who just, they're getting a small master degree. You have to already complete 75 hours of graduate work. And so for those of you who know what I'm talking about, you know that that's pretty grueling. But it's an academic degree. It is prestigious. I was able to uh, keep the same standard I had for my MDiv with as far as what my GPA was. I was able to keep it high. I will graduate with highest honors, which is graduating with a GPA of 3.95 or higher. And so, usually this degree is used to help propel people and qualify them into PhD candidacy. And that's really kind of why I wanted to pursue it when I first thought about doing it. I'm not pursuing a PhD at this time, but Having gone both through the Master in Divinity and the Master in Theology with a perfect GPA, those things would really help qualify me for really any PhD program that I wanted to get into. And the reason for doing a THM that if I want to do a PhD later on really has to do with getting into a fellowship, where they actually pay you to become a doctor rather than you pay them. So, if you want to get into those very competitive fellowships, a lot of times you must have a THM. So that's where I am with that. I graduated. I'm excited to be done with that. Right now, I don't plan to do a PhD at this time. Why? That was kind of my goal, really, in my first and second year of getting my MDiv, and kind of why don't I want to do this? And this has been a question that's been asked of me by many people, and two people within my church. They really grilled me on it. Two of my own elders, um, even my own university actually called me the week before I finished and was like, "Hey, are you going to apply to the PhD program?" And I said no. Um, and so right now, I don't feel like uh, doing PhD research. To be honest, I don't feel like doing those that kind of work level. The THM was hard enough, and there are many reasons for that. One being it's really not a good time for me and my family. I have younger children, and I have already been in school for over 3 years, and so my oldest is just turned 8, so I've been in school for almost half of her life, and so that's that's kind of they've always known me to be in school. Heck, my 2 youngest, they've really don't have any recollection of me not being in school, and so I wanna spend some time outside of that kind of academic, grueling research, always trying to make you know, um, trying to make deadlines with papers and research and then that kind of stress. It's amazing how much less stressful I am in these last few weeks than I have been it really in the last year. So that's one reason. My family, I want to spend more time with them. Two, I have this conviction that the best and the brightest coming out of seminary ought to put themselves into church ministry rather than university research and theology. Now, I'm not trying to toot my own horn. I'm not trying to say that I'm, so much better than all my fellow classmates, but having going and done that THM, for one, it separates me from everyone else who was doing an MDiv at the time I was. And then also going through both programs and really, I mean, I killed it. There's no better way to say it. I had many, many professors say it would be really unfortunate if you didn't go on into doctoral work. But I just believe that what needs to be done is the people who are in my position, the people who go through and really just clean house, they ought to be in the church. The church is a theological institution. The church needs the best. They don't need the guy who scraped by with a 2.5 and now can simply go out there and put together a marketing campaign and try to build the church that way. No, the church needs its best theologians going into the church and not going out there and into the academy really. And so that's where I am. One of the books I want to read to you all in the coming months, at least part of it is called The Culture of Theology by a great theologian named John Webster. And in that book, Webster makes the case that the center and the genesis for theological development should be within the local church under the authority of the scriptures and not in the academy. And we're talking about a man, and he's gone to be with the Lord now. That was, I mean, almost 20 years ago now. We're talking about a man who was at the top of the academy. There were no better academic theologians than Webster, and he is making the case in a book about the culture of theology that theology must be done in the church. And I read that book in the last year, and it really kind of stuck with me. That message stuck with me to where I was saying, wow, if I want to be someone who contributes to the best, to the genesis, to the creation of theology, practical theology, good, sound, doctrinal theology that really helps the church, I ought to be in the church and not the academy. So I don't think it is good for the discipline of doing theology and the health of the church to continue to have this kind of separation between the theology of the seminaries and the universities and the theology of the church. And you can see the vast difference. You can really see the vast difference when you read the books that come out of both. You have books by pastors, well-intentioned pastors who they want to write practical theology, but maybe some of them maybe have never even had an education before, and they can't write. They're terrible. They're just they've got this one basic idea, and they want to pound it again and again into a practical use because, good Lord, everything has to be practical in this day and age, right? And we can't develop people's minds at all, and they just pound these kinds of books out over and over again, and when you get to people who are thinking Christians, probably people who watch my videos, listen to this podcast, they don't read them because they're like, "Wow, this is all fluff." And so, plainly, I think our best theologians coming out of seminary, which I would qualify myself in some sense, given my abilities and my level of success I've had, I would say that we should be attempting to build the church rather than build the academy. So that's a major reason. And a last reason, given that I do not plan to pursue a PhD at this time, I'm really going to be shifting my focus towards being a what we would call a public theologian, someone who does a podcast, someone who does YouTube videos. And I really want to focus on building this channel and church planting. And so I do want to achieve a PhD someday, but given the current context of both broader culture and evangelical churches in America, my thinking has shifted away from doctrinal studies towards developing people within the church. I want to do things like focus on the field of ethics. I think that broad evangelicals today, really lack a system of ethics. They really don't know how to make ethical decisions. They're all emotivist, which is not a good thing. If you go back and you look at some of my earlier research on this channel, you'll know what emotivism is. But it's making all of your moral decisions based on how you feel. And I think that is frightening that the evangelical church is that way today, or evangelical churches. And so I want to shift into being a more public theologian who can swim with the boys who are in that academic stream. I can understand what they're saying. I can talk to them and relate to them on their level, but I'm breaking it down and bringing what's needed into the institution of the church. And really, what I would like to see throughout history, really, the best theology was written for the church. It was written as prayers, written as devotions, written as all kinds of things for the church, and it was written to be doctrinally sound. I would like to see a return to that kind of theological work that is systematic in nature, that is devotional in nature, that is doctrinally sound and upbuilding and developing. in nature for the church because we don't have theology like that today. And so that is really where I'm going to be focusing my time is being that kind of public theologian that focuses on developing theology for the church, for the people of Christ, for the purpose of both building them up in faith through pious devotion, but also building them up through right doctrine. And I think that's been missing. That's something that's been missing. I cannot tell you how many evangelical churches I have been a part of and I have seen or I've watched from afar who are trying to do these things. And it's like they are reinventing the wheel all the time. They can't look back to history to help develop their prayer lives. They have to, invent different prayer nights. They're reinventing the wheel all the time. They don't look back to the history of catechesis. They try to do their own thing with their own, theology classes. It's not working for a lot of them, and this is why we're seeing the big shift away from broad evangelicalism. So, with those updates, I wanna make it clear that I have been I have intentions to grow this channel, especially now since I have the ability and the time to make good content. I have much intentions of growing. I don't wanna say I hate saying, like, my brand or, growing as a ce I don't wanna grow as a celebrity. I want to grow to bring you the content of the scriptures. I want to grow to bring you the gospel. I have so much to give, and I want to bring it to you. One of the quotes at the when I was ordained, I was given a leather bound ESV Bible, and one of the quotes I wrote in the front of that Bible was by Augustine, where he talks about, I am not the originator of the teaching. Merely a servant, one who sets the table so that you people may eat at the table and be full with God's word. That's what I want to do. That's my mentality. And that's what I want to bring to you. So help me grow. I'm asking you, help me grow, share my content. I plan to start up a Patreon account here in January. So if you feel like contributing in any way, I would love to see that. That'll help me make more content. I plan on posting at least twice a week starting this month. So usually I'll post a podcast and then I'll post a topic. I am also working towards offering devotional material at least 3 times a week, starting March 1st. I'm working towards that. I don't know if I'm going to be able to to do that and keep it up. Um, that takes a lot of work. The way that I've been doing devotional material, but I would like to offer that where I'm doing day or 3 times a week, 5-minute reflections on a verse of the Bible where we're really going verse by verse and we'll start in Ephesians. And so I'm also going to be putting some time into my website and rebranding a bit. I actually have a meeting with an artist later today to talk about rebranding and putting up a new logo and stuff like that. So I've got plans. We are going somewhere with this channel. I want you to help me get there. I would like to get my voice in front of more people and so that we can grow and so that I can focus on making this a job that I want to do rather than trying to piece together a lot of different things in order to feed my family and survive. And so with that, I'm going to talk about books. Finish out this podcast talking about books. I'm going to open up. Those of you watching, you're looking at me look down at my phone. Those of you who are just listening, you have no idea that I'm actually looking at my phone. So I'm going to look at the list of books that I've read in the last year. Bring up and by the way, I use the Goodreads app. And if you ever want to follow along to what I'm reading, That app, I put everything on that app. It in my You can look me up. I think my name is Ben Kelly on there. Let me just check real quick on my profile. The profile picture is the logo for Endeavoring Orthodoxy, the microphone. My name is Benjamin Kelly on there, so you can find me. And I know that some of you who are following me from the podcast because I've never met you in my life. I have no idea who you are, but thanks for following me. Thanks for listening. I hope that I can continue to give you good content, good teaching going forward. So, this past year in books, unfortunately, I didn't get to read as far a range as I would have liked to read. Um, I was really limited because of the amount of research I was doing really in the second half of the year, in the summer and in the fall, because plainly the THM was very, very hard. And so I was reading a lot of just really thick, difficult tomes of theology. But finishing out the year, let's see, a few books that I really want to impress on you. Gender Ideology: What Do Christians Need to Know by Sharon James. This is a short, small book. It talks about issues of gender ideology and what's going on in our Western world today. And it really just lays out very simply what Christians ought to know. And I find that I'm having these conversations more and more with people. Heck, I had this conversation with some people in my own family over Christmas, that I'm sitting around on the couch with my grandmother and my aunt, and my grandmother was saying something about kids today and how she doesn't understand what they mean when they say this. And it had to do with, um, you know, transitioning and gender ideology and all of that. And being someone who works in the public school system and someone who spent the last 3 years in the public school system, and being someone who has read these books, I know a little bit about what I'm talking about. And so I'm able to explain what seems like a contradiction, and it really is a contradiction to people who are looking in on that culture, and what those people within that culture are thinking, those people who are trying to identify themselves through their gender ideology, what they're thinking when they say certain things. And so that's a book, Gender Ideology: What Do Christians Need to Know? Sharon James. Everybody should read that. It's a great introduction, but also just serves, with books like that, you want to look at the bibliography, see what she is quoting, see what she is citing, and go on to read those other books. And I think at the end of each chapter, she gives you a list of books for certain subjects that you might want to look into. Um, Another major book that I read in the last quarter, I finished this book called The Logic of the Body, Retrieving Theological Psychology by Matthew Lapine. That's a very difficult book, but I think it is a sorely needed book within our culture, especially our Christian culture today, where Lapine is really trying to do a retrieving theology on what Christian psychology, Christian moral virtue should look like. It I'm going to be doing a lot of talking about this on the podcast coming up over the next year. I believe that psychology has totally replaced moral virtue in the Christian practice, and that's a big problem. We as Protestants need to regain the kind of virtue systems that we had of the past, because it's there biblically. It has been there. It was really there up until about 1800, and then our theology walked away from it. Something that we need to do. Lapine, what he is doing is he's saying, yeah, we don't see these systems, these virtue ethic systems within the theology of, say, like Luther or Calvin. However, they didn't think that the previous theology from guys like Aquinas needed to be changed, and so they didn't change it. And so he is recovering that older virtue theology from Aquinas and trying to help us relive it, recapture it within Protestantism. And I think that's a good thing. A couple more, few more. God in the Whirlwind by David Wells, How the Love of God Reorients Our World. Simple, easy book to read. Very stout, though, in how he presents God's holy love and how we understand who God is based on how we we view God's love. Great book. I would challenge anybody to read it. And then last one. No One Like Him: The Doctrine of God by John Feinberg. My wife asked me last night, "What was your favorite book of 2022?" Feinberg's book was it. No One Like Him: The Doctrine of God, John Feinberg. It's thick. It's not. It's pretty expensive if you go out and buy a hardcover. I think it's somewhere in the realm of $60 to $70. You will not be disappointed. This is one that you're going to want to keep on your shelves for years and years and years to come. And it's the book itself is about 20 years old, so it's not like it's something new. This was one that I had to read in the Doctrine of God. It was the main text. It's phenomenal. Yeah, I cannot wait to get a hard copy myself and read it again. I liked it so much, and it's not easy. It is very difficult. It is not short. I believe it's over 700 pages, maybe into 800 pages. Again, you won't be sorry. Make it a devotion to read a few pages a day of it because it is just that good. You should be reading it. The way that he explains things, the depth that he goes into to encountering academic and thinking culture, and then also just how he wants to show how certain issues are relevant for the church today. You can't go wrong with it. No One Like Him: The Doctrine of God, John Feinberg, my favorite book of the year. Go ahead and read it. So that's all I've got for you today. Be looking out this week for more content coming up on the podcast and on the YouTube channel. I'm hoping to get a topics video out as well. Um, so this is it for today. I hope you enjoy these updates. You can see where I'm going. You can see what intentions I have for this channel. So until next time, I love you. God bless you. Read some books and let the Spirit illuminate you. Have a great day.